The world comes to Philly. We're in the host city for the World Meeting of Families with new details. Weekend trip. Pope Francis visits Turin, where thousands come to venerate the Holy Shroud, now on display. Solidarity with Charleston. The nation mourns as families prepare to bury their loved ones. And papal preparations. The city where America's independence was born gets ready for Pope Francis. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly's special Family in Focus for Monday, June 22nd, 2015. Good evening from Philadelphia. We are here just 3 months away from the World Meeting of Families beginning. I'm Brian Patrick. This is the historic Cathedral Basilica of Saints Peter and Paul. We are here as the summer of 2015 begins to set the stage for a global gathering that starts the first week of fall. Enshrined here in this Cathedral Basilica is the official icon or image of the World Meeting of Families. It depicts the Holy Family with Jesus as a toddler in Mary's steadying grasp as Joseph looks on. They are pictured in a colorful, warm, and very human setting. In the background shadows, if you look closely, we see the grandparents of the Christ child. In the spirit of Pope Francis, the Church is partnering with the Philadelphia community to help those in need. The World Meeting of Families, a special committee of that organization, unveils the Mercy and Justice Initiative today. This initiative includes the Francis Fund. It is a special short-term effort to help the hungry and homeless in the greater Philadelphia area. The hope is to leave a lasting impact after the Pope's visit. Also, the Act for Justice campaign will reach out to Congress, urging a national response to poverty in the U.S. The initiative attempts to reflect Pope Francis's call for us to show mercy, compassion, and charity to all. Sister Mary Scullion joins us now, the chair of the Hunger and Homelessness Subcommittee for the World Meeting of Families. Sister, what do you hope to accomplish with the Francis Fund?
With the Francis Fund, we hope to concretely implement Pope Francis's vision of compassion and justice. Pope Francis really wants us to touch the lives of those that are hungry and homeless in our community, and this is one way to do it.
Do you have a monetary goal and a spiritual goal?
Our goal is to end and prevent hunger and homelessness in our community. At this first round, we're trying to raise $1.5 million to provide shelter, food, trucks, refrigerators, stoves to so many organizations here in the Philadelphia and Camden area.
What about the Mary Undoer of Knots campaign? That's very interesting.
We love the Blessed Mother and our spirituality to deepen at the Pope's visit for the Blessed Mother, and that's going to be right here, right outside the Basilica, 30 days before Pope Francis arrives.
We had more on that just a little earlier. Is Pope Francis, in your view, inspiring conversion among people?
Absolutely. God's grace, obviously, touches us all, and I think Pope Francis has challenged us to even go deeper and stronger with a conversion to peace and social justice and to compassion.
How can we all help with this initiative?
If people would go www.mercyandjustice.org, send in your knots, contribute to the Francis Fund, and write a letter to Congress.
Mercyandjustice.org.
Yes.
Sister Mary Scullion, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to be here.
So while we're here in Philadelphia, we would like to show you around this great city that has so much history, that is so much a fiber of the United States of America. Philadelphia, a city rich in history, the place where our founding fathers signed the Declaration of Independence.
Can I get you, buddy? Regular cheesesteak. You want onions on that?
The city of brotherly love is also known for its cheesesteaks and home to the iconic Rocky statue. Philadelphia can now add another distinction, host to the nation's first World Meeting of Families and a visit by Pope Francis.
A joyful man, very kind, very warm, very engaging.
Mayor Michael Nutter was part of a contingent that traveled to the Vatican last year. He personally invited the Pope to visit.
I did ask him to please come to Philadelphia on behalf of 1.5 million people and my mother, and he smiled. and we had a wonderful moment.
The World Meeting of Families is a conference led by international Catholic leaders. It focuses on issues facing families across the globe.
So when we believe deeply. And so the fact that the Holy Father's coming here brings a lot of pride to us. And we're very excited that we've been chosen, and we promise to do it up big and fun and Philly proud.
When St. John Paul II celebrated Mass in Philadelphia in 1979, he drew an estimated 1 million people. That number is expected to double for the Mass celebrated by Pope Francis outside the Philadelphia Art Museum.
He brings millions of people to the city. It's a beautiful thing to actually have him here.
Many Philadelphians are praying that the Pope's visit will spark a new wave of evangelization.
I think he's doing what the Holy Spirit is telling him. He's doing a wonderful job.
I believe that people, when they see him, are going to feel his presence. And I think they're going to have an immaculate, unbelievable experience. I'm looking forward to it.
We are back in Philadelphia in just a moment, but first, Suzanne LaFranchi in Washington has some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. Suzanne?
Thank you, Brian. A week of funerals lie ahead for the 9 victims of the Charleston Church massacre. The weekend was filled with remembrances of those gunned down during a Bible study, and today calls for change. Jason Calvi has more. Jason?
Suzanne, South Carolina's Governor Nikki Haley is now calling for the Confederate flag to come down from South Carolina State House. A group of political and religious leaders are asking state lawmakers to vote this week to remove it. The White House says the president supports taking the flag down. It comes a day after the first Sunday service since the massacre. The suspect holds a Confederate flag in this picture. That flag also hangs from the South Carolina State House.
We still have a lot to do to heal relationships within our community. But I think the symbol of taking down the flag would be a great step forward.
A step some hope will happen before Pastor Clementa Pinckney's body lies in state at the Capitol Wednesday. He was one of 9 murdered at Emmanuel AME Church on Wednesday, along with librarian Cynthia Hurd.
I feel joy that she's with the Lord today. She is not a victim of the senseless crime. She got her victory on Wednesday night.
Emmanuel AME Church is once again a place of prayer and refuge.
Because the doors of Mother Emmanuel is open on this Sunday. It sends a message to every demon in hell and on earth.
Hundreds of people overflowed onto the street. And church bells rang across Charleston. Thousands marched on an iconic bridge with a message of support. Several hundred people, including the Bishop of Charleston, prayed the rosary outside the AME Church last night.
They don't call it the Holy City for nothing. They talk about the fact that, the reason for the name is the number of churches in the city. But it's much more than that. It has to do with a whole spirit of cooperation and a spirit of faith. Faith is strong in Charleston.
Bishop Robert Guglielmone is asking South Carolina Catholics to join in a 9-day novena for the victims of the shooting. His suggested prayer is on our Facebook and Twitter pages, and tonight the diocese is hosting a healing prayer service. Suzanne?
Thank you, Jason. A possible link to 2 prison escapees has been discovered in a cabin. Police say 2 items may be linked to the convicted murderers who are still on the run. The items have been sent to labs for DNA and other testing. The manhunt for the escapees went from a railroad near the Pennsylvania state line to a small town not far from the prison. Searchers canvassed the heavily wooded area in upstate New York today. The weekend search is focusing on towns more than 350 miles away. There was an unconfirmed but credible report that the 2 men resembling the prisoners were spotted. Louisiana abortion doctors testified behind a screen in court today in order to remain anonymous. A Baton Rouge federal judge opens the 6-day trial of a challenge from 3 Louisiana abortion clinics. The doctors object to the state's law requiring them to be able to permit patients to a hospital within 30 miles. The doctors sued anonymously as John Doe's, and a court order has made virtually all information about the clinics confidential. Eurozone finance ministers break off talks without an agreement on Greece's bailout. They hope to reach a deal later this week. It could keep Greece from defaulting and falling out of the currency union. Greece needs more loans from its creditors before June 30th. That's when it faces a debt repayment it cannot afford. An exit from the euro would be hugely painful for Greece. It could plunge the country back into a deep and long recession. Stocks around the world rallied today in hopes of a breakthrough in the bailout talks. Pope Francis finishes up a two-day visit to Turin in northern Italy. The Holy Father celebrated Mass with thousands of pilgrims and prayed in front of the famous Shroud of Turin. But it's his comments during several other encounters that are getting the most attention. Wyatt Goolsby reports.
Suzanne, Pope Francis touched on everything from living chastity to death camps in World War II, but he ends his trip with a strong message of Christian unity.
The Holy Father asked for forgiveness today for the persecution of members of a small evangelical church in Italy. Its followers were branded as heretics during the Middle Ages. That message during the first ever visit by a pope to that church. On Sunday, Francis spoke off the cuff to crowds, decrying the deaths of innocent Christians during World War II. He criticized the great powers for failing to act when they knew Jews, Christians, and homosexuals were being sent to death camps. During the same speech, he challenged young people to go against the flow.
Vivere l'amore castamente.
The Holy Father asking youth to live chastity. Earlier, Francis prayed before the Shroud of Turin. Hundreds of thousands of pilgrims have come to venerate the burial linen that some believe covered the body of Jesus. During Mass, the Pope highlighted the love of Mary for her son.
Che Gesù le ha affidato dalla croce.
The Holy Father saying the shroud draws people to the tormented face and body of Jesus and, at the same time, to every person who suffers unjust persecution. Wherever he went, Pope Francis was greeted by thousands.
He is an extraordinary person. Just by joining this kind of event, it's possible to understand his personality and his spirit. He is a great communicator. He's able to touch people's heart.
During Sunday's Mass, the Pope made reference to the region of Piedmont. His ancestors migrated from that region to South America, and before he left today, the Holy Father had lunch with some of his relatives. Suzanne?
Thank you, Wyatt. Hundreds of thousands of Italians took to the streets of Rome to show their support of families made up of a mother, a father, and children. They gathered on Saturday to show opposition to laws being introduced in Italy to allow gay couples to marry and adopt children. Organizers estimate 1 million people took part in the Family Day. We go now to Alan Holdren in Rome. Alan, what prompted this massive demonstration, and what was the reaction?
Well, Suzanne, you could say that really indignation prompted this rally. The protest was attended by those hundreds of thousands of people who just wanted to show that there's a voice against this draft legislation. They seem to have made some sort of an effect as well. It wasn't just parents who were there, but also members of the parliament. And there was already talk in the media today in Italy saying that because of this protest, they're backpedaling on the discussion and saying that they won't go for all-out sanctioning of gay marriage, but possibly just for civil unions. And I think we can expect that there will continue to be protests until that gets turned back even further. Suzanne?
Thank you, Alan. Now let's go back to Brian, who is in the city of brotherly love. Brian?
Thanks, Suzanne, and I know you know this because you live here. This city is buzzing with excitement in 3 short months. The World Meeting of Families is gathered here. The world will be focused on Philadelphia, and no one is more keenly aware of that than the shepherd of this archdiocese. Coming up, Archbishop Charles Chaput bears responsibility for this massive World Meeting of Families. He sits down with us when we come back to Philadelphia. On Monday, June 22nd, we continue our Family in Focus special from Philadelphia. In just 3 months, the World Meeting of Families opens here. It's the first time it's been held in the United States. Sitting down with us earlier, Archbishop Charles Chaput says it was St. John Paul II who came up with this idea.
Pope John Paul II was very happy with the results of the World Youth Day gatherings, and he decided to do something like that for families. So the World Meeting of Families is really based on the same pattern of World Youth Days. It moves around. People are invited from all parts of the world. The Pope comes to celebrate the conclusion of it. This is the first time in the United States, as you said, so it's going to be, in some ways, a very new experience for most Americans. I was at the gathering in Milan, and there were not very many Americans there. In fact, I think I was one of 3 bishops. We expect a whole lot more American bishops, of course, to be here. And I think it might be the beginning of a greater participation from the United States in the World Meeting of Families.
There was some question for a while whether Pope Francis would come, and his presence here obviously comes toward the end of the World Meeting of Families, but what does it mean in terms of people being more aware of what's going on with this really important gathering?
Well, I think a lot of the people who are coming wouldn't come unless the Pope was going to be here. So it makes all the difference in the world, his participation, his presence. It lasts for 6 days, actually. The first 4 days are the Congress. We expect somewhere between 15 and 20,000 people for that. But when the Pope shows up in the last 2 days, we're expecting somewhere between 1 and 2 million. So it's quite a bit of difference. When he shows up, everyone else does too.
What are the logistics that you have to deal with because he will be present?
Well, the biggest issues are security for the crowd, not just for the Holy Father, but for the crowd, and then providing the infrastructure, bathrooms, transportation. How do you get around in a very crowded city with very narrow streets when you have a million visitors? Those kind of things become very, very difficult and also very expensive. You know, we're expecting that the World Meeting will cost somewhere near $45 million, and almost all of that money is in infrastructure kind of things. Clean up afterwards too.
So what goes on at the World Meeting of Families? This is really a working meeting, isn't it?
It is, and it's an opportunity for us to learn from other countries, other cultures, how to strengthen family life. We're paying scholarships for the poor to come. We want it to be a meeting of all kinds of people, not just people who can afford to travel to the United States on their own. So we've set aside a great deal of money to pay for scholarships. That means registration and the travel from Latin America primarily, and Mexico, the Caribbean, in order that it's a truly representative group. And what we want to do is learn about family life and celebrate the gift of family life to each and every one of us.
And this leads right into the Synod on the Family in Rome. What timing?
You know, I have been elected by the bishops of our conference to go to the Synod in Rome, and we finish up here on Sunday evening, say goodbye to the Holy Father as he flies off to Rome. And on Wednesday of that same week, I get on a plane and follow him to Rome for a 3-week-long synod on the family. In some ways, the celebration we're having would more appropriately be at the end, I guess, of the synod, but we're having it at the beginning. And we hope it'll be an energy that comes from that to encourage the bishops to do their best reflection on how to support family life in the church. To strengthen the Christian understanding of family life, which is a faithful relationship, a permanent faithful relationship of man and woman for the sake of children, it's a vision of family that's being lost. And we hope to highlight that again and talk about the importance of it, but also the beauty of it and how it really is the best way to develop children. It's where children flourish, and that's when a father loves their mother, children are strengthened. There's no denying it. I mean, we have to accept the reality there are other circumstances, and we have to respect those other circumstances. But there's no better way to do it than the way God planned it, which is man and wife, man and woman together for life and for the sake of their children.
And family can also be seen in a broader sense. I hear from some that you conduct business in this archdiocese as if it is a family.
Well, we understand the church to be the family of God. You know, it's different images of the church, the vine and the branches. You know, Jesus is the head of the body, which is the church. And those are beautiful images. But it all means that we are a family of God, and we are the people of God. We are his family. So I hope that the Archdiocese of Philadelphia models that in the way we conduct our life in the church. But also we understand that the family itself is the domestic church. It's where the faith is first passed on to children. And if the faith is lived faithfully in the domestic church, the family, then the rest of the church becomes stronger.
What is your vision for this World Meeting of Families?
Well, you know, as I prepare for this, it's a huge responsibility and a burden. And my goal is that everybody comes out of it safe and sound, and that the gospel is clearly proclaimed without compromise and joyfully.
Up next, the woman leading World Meeting of Families preparations gives us a sneak peek. And we look at the role of one of America's oldest cities in this historic event. This is a special edition of EWTN News Nightly from Philadelphia, Family in Focus. It's good to have you with us. I'm Brian Patrick, and we are joined by Dr. Mary Beth Yount. She is the Programming Director and Content Director for the World Meeting of Families. And what happens at this event, and how will it help families?
So the World Meeting of Families is held every 3 years. It was started by Pope John Paul II, now St. John Paul II, to witness to the importance of families to all of society and to strengthen families themselves. So how are we going to do that? Strengthening families through our programming in the Congress, the first part of the World Meeting of Families, in the Festival of Families, and then, of course, celebrating the Papal Mass together.
What can the church offer families to help them be strong?
I could talk for hours about that. Of course, there's, the physical, corporal works of mercy that happen, and then there's the sacramental supports. There's marriage, for one, and then there's bringing people into the church with the sacraments of initiation. There's prayer. There are things like the World Meeting of Families, where we have presenters come and teach about the family and how to grow.
And this is truly a global event. And given that, does it challenge us to look beyond our families here in the United States to a more global view and really the needs of all families?
It does. There are some needs that it looks at that are universal. That is true just because we're human. Like love is our mission, the family fully alive, right? That's true of everybody. Right. But then there are particular needs that we made sure to include. For example, in Japan, when we were looking at the questionnaires for the last synod, it turned out that over 3/4 of them are in interfaith marriages. And that was really their biggest challenge.
Yeah, so the challenges are different. And the Pope's presence, I'm sure, brings a lot to this.
It does. For one thing, it says, hey, this is what's important to me, right? I'm coming to the United States for the World Meeting of Families, and that is the purpose for the entire papal visit. And so Pope Francis is saying, the family is important to me.
Well, we are looking forward to the World Meeting of Families, welcoming our Holy Father, Dr. Mary Beth Yount. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
And Pope Francis's down-to-earth style is incredibly popular. Organizers believe that his loving kindness makes him the perfect spokesman, the perfect messenger to bring the importance of family to the world. Our Suzanne LaFranchi has that story.
Genuine warmth is what Mayor Michael Nutter felt as he handed Pope Francis a football jersey from Philadelphia's Jesuit High School last year at the Vatican.
Of course, it had the number 1 on it and Pope Francis on the back. Big smile. He really just kind of laughed at the whole thing.
It's that engaging, kind, humble demeanor that is so appealing to so many Catholics.
Oh, I love him. He's the man for the people.
He's very spiritual, and more importantly, he's very people-oriented, and that's important for people to see.
Philadelphia's Catholic roots run deep. It is home to one of the largest Catholic communities in the nation, a primary reason why the Vatican chose the city to be site of the 8th World Meeting of Families.
We can keep our families stronger, we keep our society stronger, because it's a cornerstone of a society.
15,000 pilgrims from over 100 countries will participate in the celebration of families. This year's theme, Love is Our Mission, the family fully alive. The gathering will explore Catholic teaching on marriage, family, human dignity, and the sanctity of life.
We're all striving to keep families together, me, myself. So it's very moving.
Organizers say the event is an opportunity to show the Pope that Philadelphia is a vibrant Catholic community. Many here are hopeful that the Pope's unique spiritual presence will be transformational.
He wants to do a lot of things in Philadelphia. He will be tremendously well received. There's a lot of excitement. People just talk about it as this incredible thing.
And for our team here in Philadelphia and in Washington, I'm Brian Patrick. Until tomorrow, we leave you tonight with some incredible pictures of this beautiful city of brotherly love. Good night and God bless you.